And we are live.
Great. Well, we'll call the meeting to order. And Ashley, if you'll do a roll call, please.
Sure. Chair Tom Farrell,
Here.
David Raymond,
Here.
Drew Flahive,
Here.
Meredith Knight,
Here.
Bill Dixon,
Present.
Wallace Grainer,
Here.
Brook Brown,
Here.
Ryan Clinton,
Present.
and Mo Goyle.
Here.
And if anyone is a member who's joined by phone,
Branson, Lisa Branson.
Yeah. Jeff Green is on by phone.
great. Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Pardon me. Okay. Number 2 is discussion possible action on the minutes from the December 14th, 2020 meeting. And do we have any corrections or adjustments we want to make on the minutes? And if you would, just signify by raising your hand and we'll call on you. And I don't see any. And Ashley, do you see any?
No, sir. I don't see any.
Right. Okay. So that we'll just go forward and that is approved.
Grab a motion in a second on that one.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion? And Brooke has a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. And is anybody opposed? And I don't see any raised hands, so that carries. Number 3 is an update from the BK Road Subcommittee, and I don't think David is on here right now. Is he, Ashley, has he joined us yet?
I do not see David Smith on yet. No.
Okay. I talked to David this weekend, but he didn't indicate to me he was not going to be here. We'll just table this and see if David comes back on, and we'll table item number 4. And item number 5 is an update from the Single Family Subcommittee. And Mo, I believe you are currently the Single Family Subdivision.
Yes, the single member of the Single Family Subcommittee.
The most important member.
And I have not done a single bit of work on my single member committee.
Well,
would appreciate some guidance. I'm happy to
I can do
get to it.
Let me ask this. I had thought that Alex Robinette was going to come on board. She was stated to be the chairman of the P&Z, but this past week, Alex decided that she was too busy or whatever personal reason, she resigned from the P&Z. So she's not going to be on our committee. I don't have a replacement yet from the city council in regard to somebody from planning and zoning yet. So what I'm going to do on that, Mo, I'm going to ask if I'll help you with the single family.
Perfect.
That, and we can do that. And does anybody else that would like to be on the single family subcommittee?
It's Drew. I'm happy to do that too.
Thank you, Drew.
Tom, this is Ryan. Depending on what happens with the survey, if our work ends up being completed soon, I'm happy to shift over to another committee as well, but I just don't know what's going to happen with the survey in the short term.
Okay, great. Let's right now, Ryan,
Of the 3.
I realize you're going to be tied up with that perhaps, but I'd like to go ahead and just have the 4 of us on there right now. And then once we get a replacement from P&Z, whoever that turns out to be, I certainly would like them to be on there also and do that. There's a couple of, we did get a memo from, which I think everybody got, a memo from Sarah in regard to a couple of the things on the single family that she wanted to address. And I think those are probably good. I would tell you that there was a building code task force that was done. Amber, do you recall when that was done? I know it was.
Somewhere around 2000.
Yeah, I thought that was even after 2000, but maybe.
There may have been.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, but don't hold me to that. But they spent 6 months on looking at all of the codes. So if we could get if we could get a copy of that to at least the single family and to everybody, I guess, if they want it, just make it available with a on your website so we can pull it up if we need to. And I think that would be a good start. The only thing I'll mention on the on Sarah's memo was she did put in here impervious cover limits, and specifically the council has directed us not to address that. So I probably we'll probably go around and look at a few other things. I'm not sure that the building setbacks, whether they are, and she requested that some of this information be put into the survey. And Ryan, you and I have not had a chance, and David and Jeff, we've not had a chance to talk about that. But some of the things, if I'll let Ryan, you decide whether you want those in the survey. I'm not sure that a residential, and this is one point I did want to ask the committee, see what their thoughts were, whether or not an additional survey regarding single family items would be appropriate. We are going to have I think David is going to do a survey of the tenants and property owners on BK's Road, which I think would be useful. Should we try to incorporate some of this into expand our survey a little bit? You know, you get to a point where there's too many, the survey's too long and it becomes more arduous to do. Ryan, do you have an opinion on that?
I do. Why don't we bring all of the survey stuff up when we get to that item?
I can do that.
I want to kind of give everybody a little background on where we are, how we got to where we are, and the kind of big issues that we have in front of us. I think it would make sense to talk about it then.
No problem. Okay, we will. There's a couple things that why don't I just table number 6 right now? And number 7 on our agenda, we've actually already done and I jumped the gun on that, and my apologies, but with who we have on the committee. And just because we have a committee, it doesn't mean that any of the other members of the strike force can't participate in the single family deal or any other part that we're dealing with on that. So I just want to make that real clear. So let's go to item number 8, update from the tax rate and bond subcommittee. And that would be Brooke and Phil.
Thank you, Tom. For just a little bit of background, since our last committee meeting, strike force meeting, Phil and Drew and I set up a call with Ashley and Amber, and the mayor joined us, and our city finance director, to walk through the kinds of options that the U.S. Capitol Advisors, the city's bond advisor, had outlined that we've talked about in our previous meeting. We got on a call to make sure we were all on the same page and to ask some questions directly with U.S. Capitol Advisors. And we're happy to have had the mayor join us on that call. So what you're seeing that I circulated yesterday, or was it this morning? My days are...
This morning.
This morning. what you're seeing is a revision of what I had, or what the committee had, the subcommittee had presented to you before. We tried to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And we've also run it by the city's tax advisors and had a chance to walk through it with the mayor. So I think we're getting close to a product that we might be able to put on the Strikeforce website. And then you might have noted going over the survey, it's this paper that would be linked in the survey. I believe it's question.
18.
I'm sorry?
I think it's 18 on the survey that was circulated.
On the survey to provide background information for residents who might want to identify the impact of any particular level of bond issue. And so just to walk you through this, if you want additional information about the one pager, what we've done is ask U.S. Capital Advisors to give us the tax rates and the debt service that would result at various levels of additional bond authority. That's the levels of bond authority are what you see in the chart in first column to the left. The second column is what that amount of bond authority would add to any Rolling Wood resident's property tax bill on an annual basis, assuming a 20-year bond and assuming Rolling Wood property values increase by 2% a year for the first 5 years of the bond. It also assumes that bond would go into effect in 2021. The third column is the increase to the tax rate in a percentage and the actual rate. The third column is the change that the rate and the percentage increase in the actual rate on the total property tax bill. And the last column is the debt service that level of bonding would create under those assumptions. And so what we're doing two things with this paper. One is to begin to familiarize residents with the fact that Rolling Wood is approximately 12% of the total Travis County property tax bill. So that an increase of 2% on the Rolling Wood tax rate would increase the property tax bill by 1/12 of 2%. So that's one thing this paper does. And then it also provides a way for residents to gauge if the city were to pass a bond, for example, of $10 million, what that would cost per $1 million of property valuation to that resident. And we've done that at each level of the additional bonding authority here. And then the remainder of the paper provides just data points and the assumptions that went into this analysis. We also ask U.S. Capital Advisors to show us what these same results would be if we changed the two assumptions, one being from a 2% growth in property valuation per year to a 3% growth in property tax valuation, thinking the 2% might be a little too conservative. And then we also ask that they maximize the, show us what the results would be if they were to refinance all callable debt, all debt that could be, all existing debt that could be refinanced, and show us if there were savings that would result from that as well. And the end result, we do have that information, we can provide it, but it makes only about a 3% change in the tax bill column that you see on the chart before you. It's not a big reduction. It's a reduction of about 3%. And erring on the side of being conservative about these numbers, we've chosen to stay with what we had.
Okay.
So then the other thing we did when we were on the call with the Ashley and the city finance director and the mayor was to ask, or I asked this question, whether the mayor believed the council would like for the task force, the strike force, to develop a chapter in the comprehensive plan that dealt with the city's financial planning policies. And the answer at this point is that the mayor would like to see us develop a paragraph describing what that might look like and to get back with him so he might take it to the council.
Okay, great. I think that would be useful to the city anyway.
And in that regard, what I have planned to do, and I'm talking to my subcommittee members now also, is to, I think the best way to go about that might be to look at various financial planning chapters that have been done by other cities as a part of a comprehensive plan, and then come back to this committee at our next meeting with some kind of outline, not of what it would say, but of what topics that kind of a chapter might cover as a beginning place. So I'll turn it over to Drew and Phil if they want to add anything.
Well, first, I think we just should recognize that Drew joined the committee as well.
Yes, and I apologize, Drew.
So there's that. I think this is wonderful work we've done. The issues that I think we face now is if you start going more granular on this, you end up going down a rabbit hole because we don't have any specific guidance from City Council exactly what the monies they want and will need and the timing. So you kind of going to do a boatload of work ultimately with something that's so fluid, you cannot put your finger upon it. So that's, I think, personally, I think we've gone as far as we can with the initial outset, which was to demonstrate to the community, if nothing was done and we had this huge hole in finances, what the potential impact could be to the property tax rate. And I think this sheet on its own merit does that very well. And I think this then can, maybe this is a discussion for later, but with regards to that, I saw in the question 18, it was kind of a little bit vague between various levels of percentages. You know, what does that percentage go to? I think it should just be a straightforward yes, no. Would you agree to increase your property tax prices up as pursuant to this document to cover things in the event that there is no development to pay for that and it normally needs to come from the property tax? That would be kind of my view on this right now.
Okay. Well,
This is Meredith, and I'm going to throw one question out there. I don't know if it's really the appropriate place to do it or if you guys have already looked into it or not, but just talking about the bond rate. Are you guys looking into at all? Because I know the conversation, it was mentioned previously about the rating that the city of Rollingwood can get as it stands now with its reliance on property taxes, and kind of the conversation about the comprehensive plan as it relates to redevelopment presents an opportunity with redevelopment to lessen the reliance on the property taxes and reallocate that more to the, sales tax or potential occupancy tax. So does any of this analysis contemplate what the bonds look like with a better rating, 20 or 50 years down the road, whenever that redevelopment would happen? But how does that rating affect the tax impact on that bond issue.
My understanding right now is that these bonds are rated at AA, which is at the top of the scale. So there wouldn't be any lessening of the interest rate on the bonds by reason of an increased bond rating. But we did talk about that reliance, and the discussion was that is an issue. However, the planning part of the comprehensive plan, one thing that offsets that negative, that there's a heavy reliance on property tax, is a document that the bond advisors can use to show the city is actively managing that reliance. And so that was another reason to include that in the comprehensive plan.
Meredith, this is Tom. The caution we get on that hadn't affected our rating yet, but they've given us cautions on that they look at that and that they would like to see a greater reliance of different pockets of money that came in on that. That it hadn't affected our rating yet. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't affect us maybe in the future, but it's to date it hadn't. But they do caution us each time that, and I think most of our cautions have come from our from the bond rating companies, but also from our auditors that we've done that. Is that not right, Amber? Am I correct in that?
That's right.
So it's a cautionary deal that they give on that, but that hadn't affected our rating yet.
Awesome. That's a perfect answer to my question. So thank you both. Appreciate that.
Right.
I do want to clarify that the highest rating an agency can give is AAA.
Yeah.
And I think the spread between what they walked us through a couple of weeks ago, the spread between AAA and our AA is only 40 basis points. So you're not losing a lot versus the highest AAA rating.
Awesome. That's great. And I think that's important information that should be included with that bond proposal or demonstration or whatever, just so everybody knows that, this is good.
So we would add the suggestion, Brooke and Phil and Drew, is just to add a deal that Rollingwood does have a AA bond rating. Just add one other sentence or one other line in there.
Okay. And I guess, Tom, the thing, procedurally, I'm assuming that what we do with this now, I can add that, send it back to you. And then, Amber, do we put this on the the Plan Strike Force webpage so that we can cite it in the survey? That's my assumption.
Yes.
And so I know, Tom, if we need a motion to approve as with the revisions that have been outlined, or do you want to do anything that formal?
Yes, I think that's exactly what I'd like to do. So we can finish this portion of the comprehensive plan on that. So if we do have a motion to accept our document as shown, with the addition of just noting that we do have currently a AA bond rating on that. I think that was the only change, didn't Brooke? Was there any other that I missed?
I don't know if you've called for the committee if their committee has any other comments, but I didn't hear anything else except that one.
Drew or Phil, do y'all have any other comments y'all'd like to make? Not seeing any. Okay, so if I could I have a motion to accept the tax and bond portion of our, how do we rate it? Tax rate and bond subcommittee report.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Thank you, Phil. And do we have a second?
This is Meredith. I'll make the second.
Thank you, Meredith. Are there any comments anybody would like to make or any adjustments? Not seeing any, then we'll call the vote. And if anybody is opposed to this, please signify by raising your hand. And I don't see any. And Ashley, do you see any that I'm not seeing?
No, no raised hands.
Then we are accepting this. Great. Listen, thank y'all all for your work on that. I think this has been great information to have. The only comment that I had just ending this, I think we leave this where it is, but with the work that Jeff has done in regard to the modeling, that would have potentially an impact when you talk about the amount of assessed valuation we have. It wouldn't be the percentage increase, but it would just be the overall amount, given that we've got a little backlog before the before TCAD raises up our property values to market on that. And I'm not sure how you would put that in it because we really don't know how that's going to come out yet, or I don't. Jeff, you may have a better feel for that than I do.
No, I don't think we need to put anything specific in the comprehensive plan related to the modeling, other than what we'll discuss in section 11, which is more conceptual.
Great. Okay, well, listen, again, thank y'all for all that. I think that is excellent work. And that is approved. That is item number 10. Item number 11 is a discussion, public comment, and possible action to include financial modeling in the comprehensive plan. I'll just start this meeting on that. I think this has been that the modeling will be very useful to the city on that and to our citizens in making decisions going forward. I'm not sure where in generally a comprehensive plan you would put this, but you certainly could put this in as part of the addendum or a separate section. And that's something I'd like to get the feel from our committee on. My feeling is I would probably prefer to see it as a separate section rather than an addendum on there. Jeff, do you have a comment?
No strong preference.
Okay. Do we have anybody that would like to kind of comment on that? Ashley or Amber, excuse me. Did you have a comment that I? Nope. Okay. Any comments we'd like to make?
This is Jeff Green. Can I make a quick comment?
Sure, Jeff.
So I come out on the other side, Tom. I think an addendum makes a lot more sense simply because the way I think of the comprehensive plan, it's really like a vision and a set of ideas that's supposed to last a long time. Models are inherently, static and stale and, are meant to be changed over time and adjusted. So to me, that says if you're going to include that, that really should be kind of a supplement and recognize this is a point in time and it's a little bit of a different focus than the rest of the plan.
Okay, good point.
Could we discuss that once the section's written? Because I agree with you, Jeff. I don't intend on putting anything specific around models, static models in the plan. It was more of the concept of this is an effort that we should take on and talk about it more conceptually. So I didn't want to get too specific with any of it. Like, hey, we're going to model this or model that. It's just more of a process for making decisions.
Well, let's do this then. Let's agree that we're going to put it in the plan either as a section or a addendum. And Jeff, your point's very well made, I think, on that. And that would certainly not be. I can see that would be. I can see your point very well. So let's wait till the model is complete. Both Jeff's, and then we'll see where we put it into the report. Does that sound fair?
Great.
Jeff Green, do you,
Yep.
I mean,
that works for me. No, absolutely. And I appreciate Jeff Marks's point. So
great.
That sounds great. Sounds like it's, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Number 12 moving on is an update from the utility subcommittee. And currently we have got our city engineers doing some calculations in regard to both our water and wastewater availability. We've given them they have the original data that we had, and I was pretty close that we started off with, I thought it was 1150 LUEs of sewer. It turns out that I think our original calculations were 1107. So we're pretty close. But they are going through the actual usage right now, plus the pipe sizes, to ensure that we would have adequate both water and wastewater to meet our future needs if we choose to, if we have any redevelopment on BK's Road. And Amber, when is that? That was going to come out fairly quickly, if I recall.
Yeah, I need to prompt them. But I know he wrote us an email right before the holidays, and he says our peak flows could grow by about 50% before reaching our 1 million gallons per day.
I'm sorry, was that water?
That was for water, yes.
Yeah. Now I'm going to caution everybody on the water. There was a revision to the original water contract with the city of Austin. And basically there was a paragraph or a section in there that was added, and I'm not sure when it was added. The original contract did not have stipulations about us finding our own water supply, but the revision that was done, and I'm not sure when that was done, 2008 or something like that. There's a provision that requires the city of Rollingwood to seek out and find alternate sources of water, which I don't think we've done, or we may be doing it, but we haven't done it. LCRA is obviously, there's a couple of options we could go to, but, and I'm not sure the city of Austin cares as long as we stay under our 1 million gallons a day limit. But I think that contract has that kind of provision in there, doesn't it, Amber? That when I was reading it.
Does, and I think I went back and carefully read it, and it says may require. So I think to your point, Tom, that as long as we kind of stay under that 1 million gallons per day, we're going to be okay. But it is in the contract that they could require us to go get our own water supply.
Okay, so we basically have, if I'm understanding, our initial report from the engineer, and we don't have the final one yet, says we're about 50% of our water supply we have available to use on that. Sewer he has not completed, and that's a little more complicated because we have to go through our contract with the city of Austin on processing our wastewater is a per minute flow. We're only allowed to pump so much in a pipe per minute, and we can store it and pump it 24/7. And I have yet to follow up on that, and I apologize. We have an extra storage tank that we built for that contingency on Delano Lane. And I apologize, it's either 15,000 gallons or 75,000 gallons. And I know that's a big gap, but I have not followed up to find out which one is right. But those are the two numbers that come to my mind when it was built. But it's a pretty good sized tank that we have down there. And I think it's 75, but I'd hate to bet on it one way or the other right now. So Amber, when he comes up with that, the other issue we have with that is, of course, the pipe size in BK's in Dry Creek as to what capacity that would hold also on that. So, and if we could get, I've asked David, our city public works guy, if he would just go down in that tank and measure it, but wisely he didn't want to do that. So we'll wait to see how it works. So I think by the next meeting, we should have an idea or two about, it shouldn't take them very long on the wastewater because we know what our usage is, what we've been pumping, so we can tell how much we can store and still meet our requirements on that. So anyway, that is the report on the Utility Commission. Are there any discussion or questions or anything we need to address additionally on the utility side of that? And I think we're good on that then. Okay, Ryan, update on the survey subcommittee. You're on.
Yeah, so I want to kind of give everybody an update on where we've been, what we've done, where we are now, and then really open it up for where we're going from here. The survey, this new survey began, but no longer resembles in any meaningful way. That's not true. Some of the basis is still there, and a lot of the questions are still there. It's just much more complicated and bigger now. But the survey began as the suggestion of 8 or 9 neighbors who were concerned that the initial survey, under asked important questions, and that there was a real need to ask the citizens directly what they wanted and what they didn't want in language that was as non-leading as possible, open-ended as possible, but try to get real community feedback on questions that would go into what kind of future we want for our community. And so it began that way, and I think it was fewer than 10 questions. And what we did is that we have the survey committee now, which is Brook and Brown and David Raymond and Jeff Marks and Tom Farrell. And we spent, and then in addition to us, we reached out to all the members of the city council, city staff, and the members of P and Z. Although those of us on the committees have spent an enormous amount of time cutting and changing and revisiting, we didn't get a great amount of feedback from the other stakeholders that we reached out to prior to having this version. Councilmember Hundley did ask for and comment on an earlier version that we had circulated, and she gave us a great deal of feedback, and we spent a full, 3 or 4 hour meeting working through it and incorporating what we thought needed to be incorporated. Not everything, but certainly a lot of it. And since then, both Councilmember Patillo and Councilmember Hudson have seen this version that everybody, that was in the backup materials and sent around. And both of them have provided some pretty significant and meaningful feedback from this version. So, and that has not been included or incorporated. And I also wanted to mention, I apologize for all of the many typos in the current version. It was quite a week, and we tried to turn it around as quickly as possible to get everybody a draft as quickly as possible. And we wanted it posted so that the public could chime in. And so I was hoping to get this weekend to spend some time fixing the typos and have at least a cleaned up version, but I worked all weekend and unfortunately didn't get to it. So blame me for any typos and blame the committee for all the things that are good in it, because the committee really did. We have spent an enormous amount of time on it, and hopefully it reflects at least a lot of thought, whether people agree with it or not. Hopefully it reflects a lot of thought into the draft. I think what we had planned to do, based on my communications with Councilmember Hundley, was hoping that at the end of today's meeting, we would have either an approved version or an approved version subject to some changes that we would be allowed as the committee to to finish, and then to send it to the council for next week's council meeting so that they could do the same. And the idea being to meet Tom's deadline of getting this out in mid-January. So that was our timeline that we were all hoping to meet. Part of meeting, whether we meet that depends on what the feedback from the strike force is to this right now. I do want to mention that given Councilmember Hudson and Councilmember Patillo's comments and Councilmember Hunley's, is that we clearly cannot please everyone. There are very much differing opinions among everyone on what should go in here. And one thing that Councilmember Hudson pointed out is, where's the vision part? And I thought that was a really good comment of we're now so far into the policy wonk details of proposals that and very specific, very specific proposals that Rollingwood is thinking about, that how do you put together a vision document from this? I thought that was a really good point, and I thought that was a very valid criticism of the current document. On the other hand, Councilmember Hunley, and I don't want to speak for her, but I think it's fair to say was very in favor of very specific policy questions, because the council doesn't get a chance. The council is very rarely given the chance to get public feedback on all of the many things in front of them. And maybe it doesn't go into the vision part of a comprehensive plan, but it's still very helpful and very meaningful for council, and I'm sure for staff as well. And I think Councilmember Patillo had a few more questions that she would like added that are policy related. So we as a committee, I think, need to decide a couple of things. And in addition to just, are there things you would want to change about it? I think we need to decide two big things today. One is that do we still want to stay on the timeline that Tom and us on the committee and Councilmember Hundley had talked about? I mean, I don't think we have to. I think if we think this needs more work, then we don't have to force ourselves to the timeline. Although the timeline does feed into having this done in March or April, if that's going to happen. So I think the timeline is a big question. A second big question is the vision thing. Are we way too far into the weeds? Do we need to back up and take a less micro level into the policy of Rollingwood and back up and ask more vision questions? And so just an example of that was Councilmember Hudson's comment of, instead of asking whether we want a new police building, we need to ask the community what it is that we want. What services do we want? What are the most important services to us? And then from there, figure out what the policy should be, rather than putting the policy right at the front saying, do we want this? And I see positives and negatives to both. I understand why council would want as much feedback on as many questions, on as many policy issues as possible. But I think those are two kind of defining decisions that we need to make today, hopefully, so that we can either set it on the path to keep going at current pace, or slow it down a little bit and take more time with it. Obviously, there was no time between when we got comments back from Councilmember Hudson and Councilmember Teo to have those entered into the draft before this committee got it on today. So those aren't even in here. And I'm happy to share those comments with anybody, but they're not, we have not made changes based on their comments yet. The last thing I wanted to say is that Councilmember Hundley very much wanted a section that would be questions to commercial tenants and commercial owners as to what they want. Our chair, Mayor Farrell, made the decision that he would like that to be a separate task, and that he would like the commercial, the Bee Cave subcommittee to develop whatever it wants with respect to getting feedback from commercial tenants and owners, whether it be phone calls or meetings or another survey. And I think I agree with that, that I really wanted clean data that was directly to residents about what they wanted. And that if we want to do a separate survey, we can to commercial, but let's get this one moving forward. However it is that we want to move it forward. I'm personally going to be pretty unavailable after next week for 2 weeks due to work, but based on our timeline, if we want to pause, we can pause. If we want to move it forward to council and let them make whatever changes they want, we can do that. But those are the issues that I see that we now have before this group to decide today. And I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Well, my feeling is that if we're going to do, I agree that and I still believe that it's best to have the commercial part of it done separately, because I think it just gets to be most of that our residents wouldn't know what they're answering on that, and I think it's better to let the BK Road part of that do that. If we change this, Ryan, it seems to me Sarah brought up 6 points that she was concerned about, 7 counting impervious cover. And then Amy brought up 4 points that she wanted to try to look at. Most of, I think, my opinion in reading the survey, and I want to congratulate everybody that worked on this, Ryan and Brooke and David. Y'all just did a magnificent, and Jeff, y'all did a magnificent job on this, in my opinion. And I know how much work went into it. And I think it's done for our residents, by our residents, which I think is really a good way to do it. If we put some of the residential comments that Sarah made in there, some of these would require quite a bit of explanation, I think, like the topography part of that. I understand what Sarah's saying, but I'm not sure how to word that to where we could put that in a survey issue. But the setbacks, building heights, fence, accessory building, and our tree ordinance, whether it's strong enough, that's an additional 6 questions on our survey. And then that doesn't address Amy's questions of, the sales tax and some of the comments she has, which I really believe most of, if we had, not directly, but in some ways, I think a lot of what Amy's questions were already in the survey in a different format. To me, it was anyway, because, but we could look at that too. And I'd like the council maybe to address Amy's questions. But if we're going to do any changes on this, Ryan, I think we could expand it. Get back to that basic question I started off with a while ago. Do we want to do a separate detailed residential survey, or do we want to try to include some of these questions in the survey that we're doing now?
I personally think that, we already have several residential questions. So, if we're going to do separate, I'm guessing you would propose to cut all of those out of this one. I think the community wants, again, speaking for other people, and I know I can get that wrong, but my understanding was that one of the drives to do this was to figure out what the community wants inside the community. As one of the heavy criticisms of the initial communications was that people felt like Bee Caves Road does not define us. That if we want to talk about the future of Rollingwood, we need to talk about all of it, not just one road. And that it was a mistake to focus completely on one road. So that's why it's in there. A lot of people wanted it in there. I think it should be in there, but again, it is getting wonky, and it's getting long. So I would like feedback from everybody on how they feel about those big picture issues.
We're at 37. Let's see, what are we at? How many questions do we have? we're at 38 questions. If we added, you could incorporate the setbacks and building height in one question, I believe. Maybe even the fence in that same question, but you're still going to end up with at least four questions if we put any residential in there. Is that getting too long on this survey? What's y'all's thoughts on that?
Tom, I have a question for the group. What are our thoughts on doing another survey in the future? And maybe any of the spillover questions could go into a future survey? Because I do see this getting a little long. And if we go through another big round of edits, it could grow to 40, 50, 60 questions. And which questions do you cut? I think I would suggest having a firm time that we get the survey out, having a firm number of questions that we want to include. And it's not to say the new questions are bad. We should definitely consider them and just do another version of this in 6 months from now or a year from now. Because I think this is great. I think this is such a good effort. I think we should continue this in the future.
Okay, good point. I would like to get this out at least to the council, and if they want to make a few changes on that, let them make it. Ryan, that's my opinion. I appreciate both Sarah and Amy's comments on that, but at the present time, we knew we were going to get some feedback from the council. We might as well just send this. I'd like to just adopt this as is and send it to the council, and then they can incorporate any changes that they'd like to recommend on that in one time. Because if we do these now, we're liable to get some more from the rest of the council when we submit it anyway.
No doubt. And so if part of the idea is let's just keep it moving, then it's in their hands. They're welcome to make as many changes as they want. What I didn't want to do is accidentally send the message that, or which we're not trying to send, that Councilmember Hunley's comments matter, but none of the others do. It was more that we got the feedback at a moment in time where we were all heavily working in the document. And so we were able to incorporate a lot of it at that moment. And then I circulated the new draft to everybody, and that's when we got the additional comments. So I don't want anybody to think that that's what we're doing if the committee today decides to just push it forward.
Yeah. So you're saying there's about 40 questions right now?
38.
38
right now.
I would just say that that's a lot. Ideally, we'd have less than half of that. And we run the risk of folks putting less effort into the sort of the second half of the questions, which could affect the quality of the data, right? And depending on how the survey is worded, then the questions, the first half of the questions, just, we might get a lot more. Knowing that, there'll be more attention paid to the first half of the questions. There's just a little bit of fatigue might set in, assuming we require everyone to answer all of them, right? That's also not, there's no wrong answer there if all they're required or if they're allowed to skip some. So I just wanted to mention that. There might not be a way to reduce them, but just knowing the effects of having a longer survey or the ramifications.
Mo, I completely agree with you. And it's one of my concerns about how kind of policy wonkish it is right now. I'm worried, and we are also including links to external documents that if they want to learn about, the justifications for a new city hall building, there's an entire document to read about it. If they want to learn about drainage, there's an entire document for them to read about it. If they want to learn about improvements to the water system, there's an entire document for them to read about it. So it's I am worried that if we want to get as wide input as possible, just as much as possible. We want as many people to fill it out as possible. And of course, the people who are highly interested and highly engaged are going to fill it out however many questions it has. But I am worried about that. And so again, it's like that big question of what do we want to do today?
Well, there's basically, there's 3 questions in here. One, the last question, Mo, just basically says, do you have anything else you want to add on that? So that's an open one.
And that's on each section. So there's probably 5 or 6 of those that just say, do you have anything else?
Yeah. And then you've got 2 questions in here that I asked to be put in here. And it really doesn't have to do with the survey per se. I put those in there because I wanted the city to have some backup when they address the reverse lane proposal on BK's Road that TxDOT had proposed. And if they had a survey that showed that the citizens were opposed to it, it gives them a little bit more ammunition when they go battle with TxDOT over that. And so those are the things that if you took those out, you're down to maybe 30 really questions. Is that fair to say, Ryan?
Yes, I think so. And some of them are quick, do you feel it, on the realm of strongly support, neutral, strongly do not support, and strongly do not support. So and people can go pretty quickly through them if they want to. I do wonder if we could just have a skip option at the bottom on each one in case they just want to pass. They don't want to, have to get through that one. They could just pass. I don't know if that's an option in the software.
Well, and I would just like to throw out that and I have no professional survey experience whatsoever, but my vote, and I could be convinced otherwise, would be to not have every question mandatory, because I know in surveys I've done in the past that if everything's mandatory, but I have no opinion about something, I'm more likely to skip the whole survey because I don't have an answer for that question versus just answering the questions that I do have, opinions about.
I agree.
First 7 questions, Mo, are basically, do you live in Rollingwood? How old are you? Are you familiar with our comprehensive plan? How did you learn about it? And annual income, which is an optional question. And which area of Rollingwood do you live in? When you get down to hardball questions, we're getting down to 20 some questions really that we're asking opinions.
So that's good. I'm sure we've all done surveys. A lot of those super easy ones, that's why they stick them at the end, because people, when they are sort of tired of the survey, they'll still answer those, right? Because it's a split second for each one. And so the ones that require more thought are the ones we want to put up front, because people are just more willing to invest the time. And are we thinking this will be online only? If we were mentioning that, just because if we really want everyone's feedback, I don't know if there's an option to mail it out or put it on people's doorstep. I know with COVID, that second option might not be well received.
Tom, well, I can tell you from my my walks around the neighborhood that there's a significant subpopulation of the neighborhood that is not getting any email communications or text communications from the city, and didn't even know this was happening. So we talked about that with Tom, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but his strong opinion was that we should send hard copies by mail to everyone. And basically it would be an honor system. We're asking everybody to fill it out once, but we're giving it a paper copy as well to each house.
I've had a thought about this survey, not the specific questions, but the timing of the survey in relation to the next town hall, and that it might facilitate both the town hall and getting responses to the survey if we organize that town hall so that we're asking residents to talk about these various topics the same way we've identified them in the survey. Let's say the survey goes out 10 days before the town hall. We can remind people at the town hall that here's what we're doing in the survey. And if you haven't, get your survey in. We can facilitate their thinking about it or answering questions about it if we also take each major topic like roads, issues, water, wastewater, kind of go through the town hall using the same organization that's in the survey, and then give people another 10 days after the next town hall to close out the survey. But I don't know if that timing works or not. It just seemed to me that that would be a way of reinforcing both the survey and having some structure to the next town hall to get input on topics we know we want to get input on.
And that's really you'll notice we've got on an agenda item is set a new town hall. And I want to make sure that it was after we had sent the survey out. Because then you're going to get, if they have a question about something that's in the survey, we can answer it during the town hall.
Paul, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Was the last survey online? I thought of, are we concerned about folks outside of Rollingwood completing the survey if it's online with no sort of verification or code or anything like that?
Yes, it was online last time. It was
About the honor system. I trust the honor system and folks, but I'm more worried that folks would fill it out who aren't local, because people around, I mean, you know, if I lived in Zilker, I might have an opinion. And if I got sent the link, I might, you know, it wouldn't be probably the most unethical thing for somebody to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, just throwing that out there.
We haven't come to a conclusion on that. We talked about possibly at least keeping an email address, asking for an email address, and that they not be tied in any way to the answers, but at least that way we can see if somebody is answering it several times. We have not thought through, and maybe maybe we should, of specifically having some kind of code or verification of some sort. I don't know how to do that. Do you know how to do that?
Well, I'm going to have to ask Ashley on that, because I certainly do not know how to do that. And my feeling is that as long as we do what I thought we were going to do is we were going to keep the email addresses, and we could tell. Ashley, you've got probably 75% of our city's email addresses.
I would say so, between the different, I mean, 75% might be a lot, but we have whoever signed up for our Swift notification system and a few other, you know, past mail outs and things, we might have some info.
I'm not as concerned about somebody, you know, perhaps our neighbors at Ridgewood and Brady might have a comment, and but my guess is it's going to be, my experience on these type of surveys is you can't even get to people that really are impacted by it to fill out the survey. And I'm not as worried about getting out groups outside Rollingwood fill it out as maybe I should be, but that's just not something that I think is all that critical to us. Now, we can tell if we can put in there, we're asking that only Rollingwood residents do this. And again, that's further of an honor system. But I don't want it to be, if we get 5,000 responses, we know we got a problem, but I'm guessing we won't get that.
If there's a way to not or to have, you know, a field like the email addresses not associate to the responses, could we collect physical addresses?
One option might be to send out a notice for people to do the survey, and that way you could still keep it secure in there. You know, you could still do the electronic survey. And then Ashley, I think we printed out one or two for folks who wanted to participate that way.
We did. And then it's just a question of inputting the data once, if it's, you know, if it's a 40 question survey and there's 100 paper ones, but, you know, those will have to be input. And then there's a chance for, you know, human error. And then another thing I just want to say on the email aspect, we're creating public information with every survey. So as with the last survey, it can be requested, and we don't have a lot of say in keeping it private. So whatever we're asking will most likely be public information.
And we do have, just so everybody knows, there are certain companies that request Freedom of Information Acts on almost everything we do. That doesn't, they're just, I'm not sure who they're with, frankly, but I know we get one every month, don't we, Ashley? From different companies.
Yeah, at least we get quite a few.
So I would, I think that we are better off by sending this out electronically where we can and a paper copy to the whole city. Because if we send the paper copy out, we know we're sending it to our residents. If we, and electronically, again, if we know how many we're getting back, you know, we'll probably be able to tell on that. So, Ryan, do you have a big concern on that? Because just doesn't seem like to me anybody's gonna, that's not in the city is gonna take the time to do it.
Well, I would say that it is certainly a plausible possibility that someone could put it on Reddit and it could spin out of control and it would be useless. Our data would be useless. On the other hand, I don't know how to fix that problem. And if someone does know how to fix that problem, I'm all ears. I just don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious if there's a solution. My recommendation, and that's all it is that we put, you start the survey with a, you know, so basically, it's not a legal oath, but I assure that, or I promise I am a citizen of, a resident of Rollingwood, before I start this survey. And then they type their, you know, and then they click OK, whatever. Basically, if the person has some sense of ethics, that tends to work really well without having to go through security codes, or entering your email, because a lot of people just won't believe that if they enter their email, it will be disassociated.
There is another way to do it, and that is don't put it out on the internet. And we send a paper copy, but we have a link that allows them to fill it out electronically if they prefer. And that would at least make it, that's a step to maybe give it some credibility on that.
Anyway, I'm sure I've taken us off on a tangent, but I think it's a good idea. I just want to make sure that if you need to defer this, feel free to.
Yeah, let's, I think, well, let me ask you, if we send it out as a paper copy, Ashley and Amber, it's a lot of work, but we can send that out and have a separate sheet that says if you would prefer to fill this out by electronically, you can do so by the following link. Does that work for the city standpoint?
That would be tremendously a lot more work for the city staff to have to enter in 100 or 200 or 300 survey questionnaires. The other issue is that, I mean, I don't open mail a lot. I probably open a quarter of my mail. I don't know what other people are, but I think we will have a big drop off if mail is the only source that people get this.
My feeling is I think we do it this way. We do send it out electronically, but I'd like to send a paper copy to everybody. And if we get, there's a risk and we recognize the risk going forward, but I'm not sure how to quantify that either. And if we can figure out how to quantify it, I'll come back I'll work with the city and see if we can figure out a way to do that without everybody's email being exposed to some of the data miners that we have come in. So does that work for everybody on that? And I think that the best move right now is to go forward with what we have, send it to city council, let's get their feedback and then finalize one. That would be my go forward deal. Ryan, this is y'all, and Brooke and David, what y'all's thought? Y'all put so much work in this.
Well, I agree with you, Tom. I think it should not get any longer than it is. I haven't tried just sample doing it and to see how long that would actually take me to do it. I think I'd be curious to know how long it would take to do the survey. Maybe all of us can give it a shot and kind of get an average.
Sure.
But I'm imagining it'll take about a half hour time, but maybe it'll take longer.
Phil?
Yeah, I actually have a question about some of the questions, and maybe it's getting a bit too specific, but I think it may be a misunderstanding of mine, a fundamental misunderstanding. When we started this process, we were given a set of projects that needed to be accomplished. They were not optional, was my understanding, and they were mandated, such as the drainage and storm water management. And now we're giving people the option to vote on that. That doesn't feel right if it's mandatory for safety reasons or improvement of our community. So I was just a little bit confused why we would do that, because I'm looking at question 11, and it's kind of prioritizing, and that work's already been done. And it's the biggest element of costs associated that we have to, the hurdle we've got is about $17 million.
I can I take a shot at that, and that is in all of my conversations with council members, there's a recognition that all of these things are community decisions. That this community as a whole has not decided we're going to spend $17 million on this in total or in specific projects, the payment for each project, and that the whole, you know, the goal of the comprehensive plan was to try to get a view of what the citizens of the community wanted and what it prioritized, and does it prioritize a new city hall, and does it prioritize a low water crossing over Edge Grove, and all of these questions were things that we needed to find out as a community what we want, and then to send it to council, and they're welcome to do with it whatever they want. If they disagree, they can change the plan. If they believe that we need all of these things, they can put up a bond, or they can make whatever decision they want to. But my conversations with all city council members, and again, I don't want to speak for them, is not consistent with the assumption that all of this has already been decided and we have to come up with $30 million.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying, but I think safety comes into it as well. There are certain things that need to be done from a safety aspect.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why when, you know, the engineer was on, I kept on trying to ask which of these issues are public safety issues. And I've actually personally gone down to and spent 2 hours with the neighbors at the intersection of Nixon and Pleasant Valley to understand what those issues are. And I 100% agree that that is a major public safety issue that we have to deal with. And I think people disagree about Edgewater low water crossing. I happen to think it's a major public safety issue, but I have talked to many neighbors who do not. So I think that's the point of this, to try to figure out what people think.
Phil, from just a governance standpoint, if the city council gets feedback that says, no, we don't think you need to do these things, then what that tells the city council is, look, these are public safety issues. We have to educate our population to the fact that these are public safety issues that need to be done. So it identifies an area of educational need. So that was my thinking on this. Okay. Whether or not you have to do it, if the population doesn't think you do, then it's up to the city council to show them that, yes, you need to do this, and this is why.
But Tom, this is an example.
I know we have our drainage criteria study, but I don't think very many residents in Rolling would have read that.
But just as an example, Tom, you don't think that there's any reasonable solution to the Edge Grove low water crossing, and you're as educated as any citizen is going to be on this issue. So, I mean, it is a somewhat of a risk, and it's identified as by the engineers as the number 1 or number 2 risk in the community. But even you don't think we should deal with it. So I'm just pointing that out, that it's not easy. They're not easy answers.
Yeah, I think that it can be improved, but I'm not sure how you get it without doing a lot of different things, that you could get it out of the 100-year floodplain. And there you're still got a substantial public risk, even though it's better. You can put bigger culverts in and raise the road some, but there's only how high you can build that road up before you block off 2 streets. To do
On the survey, are all the answers valid answers? Like, I think Phil mentioned question 10, but is it an option to leave City Hall as is? Like
Definitely. I mean,
that's an option to do nothing? Because
City Council wouldn't like it, and I think city staff wouldn't like it, but as a community, yes, definitely.
I think, to clarify, not that city staff wouldn't like it. Just for example, yesterday, City Hall was without power. Police department was without power. We can't take your phone calls if you need assistance. Our wiring is on the outside of our building. Our finance director sits in the corner of the council chambers. We want to hire a utility billing manager so we can be in control of our utility billing, so we don't have to third party that. We don't have anywhere to put them. So not only are there just real infrastructure and truly infrastructure needs that we have at City Hall, but you're also making business decisions with the space that you currently have in City Hall. The police department has window AC units. So does our public works director. I would invite anybody who's not been at City Hall to come in there, and we'd be happy to give you a tour and kind of let you know what some of our limitations are. And you could get familiar with that.
I will just say this: that building was built for $19,000. So it was not it wasn't built for a lot. And yes, there is the wiring is. Yesterday when it was raining, I was watching all our wiring next to while we were working out there, and it was kind of interesting to see all that. But
Tom, I think you may have a hand up.
oh, sorry.
Yes, Diana Wallace here. I realize I missed the resident input, some technology problems going on. I'd like to speak for a couple of minutes on the situation with the survey and such, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
I really appreciate all the hard work that everybody has done and putting into this. But there's an old saying about, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when are you going to have time to do it again? And my feeling is that this survey is not quite ready to go to council, and it hasn't had a lot of resident input. And we're finding out that there are a couple of people on the council that have added some stuff, and that's not being included in what goes to council. And forgive it, but it's kind of a repeat of the optics once before. We're going to hurry up and pass something, send it on to council, and let them work out the difficulties that are involved. And at the moment, the residents kind of feel like at least most of the residents that I know kind of feel like the city council, by and large, does not have the same vision that the residents do of the single family dwelling, so on and so forth. So I would urge y'all to postpone to get it done right, as far as the time constraints on not having it ready by the next council and letting the council sort it out. Because there's a lot of us residents that feel like we've been thrown into a steep learning curve. We first started hearing about the master plan and the comprehensive plan, and then all of the other things, and then Pegasus and the other things. And we're all just kind of reeling from the speed at which things are happening and the fact that we don't know about it and we don't know where to find out about it. And then when we do find out about it, some of us are technologically challenged. And anyway, so slow down just a tiny little bit. Let's not have a repeat of what happened before. Let's get some resident input on the survey. Let's get the people who spoke from council that have some questions. I got to admit, the idea of having a vision before you do anything else is overpowering. I mean, that's where we should be headed. That's where we should be looking at. And then everything else kind of falls into place, maybe not easily. And this is not to denigrate any of the hard work or the hours that y'all have spent doing this. I understand it. I really and truly do. More so in recent times because I've become involved in it to some degree. And thank you for letting me speak. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Diane, let me ask you a question. The concept we had is that this goes to city council. City council is going to have a public meeting on it. And so it'll be exposed to our citizens at that time, which we thought was a good way to get this out to the public so they could hear about it. And then the second way would be when we hold another town hall meeting, I would like for the residents to have that and they can comment and make some questions on the survey that we're doing at that time also. So it'd be at least 2 times that we would try to do that. I'm not sure that's enough. And that's what I'm really asking you. Do you believe that would be enough to get our citizens involved in this?
Not for the initial startup. For the initial startup, I really feel like there needs more time to perfect the survey and to get the word out to residents that there's a survey coming. Be on the lookout for it. These are the things that are happening. This is going to be happening. It's imminent. Instead of surprise, this is what the town meeting's about in 3 days.
So why, if we did this, if we had this go to the council and it was a draft, the council made their comments, because ultimately we have to send, before we send it out, we have to get the council's approval. And we send it to them, it comes back, so that would be a town meeting, or that would be a public meeting. We would have a town meeting, and maybe we can, before we send this out, we'll have another one of our meetings, and we invite the public, and we'll do that by notice as best we can. Ashley, how could we notify people that we're finalizing the survey and they're welcome to make comments? Is there a way to do that easily? And I'm also technologically challenged, so I understand exactly what you're saying. But you know, we're not going to get it out in the water bill we could get it out in February's water bill. I believe the 3rd week is when you have to put that out. Is that correct?
When do
Could
we have
get it in
to-
this one.
We could, yeah.
I could get it in the February bill. Okay. And that would be that's the best way I have to communicate with our citizens right now. We can do it electronically, but most people get a water bill. Some people just have it on auto pay and they don't really look at it. But you know, there's no foolproof way that I can get everybody's attention. My normal way to do it would be walk door to door, but with the virus, that's not a good thing to do either. So we can't do that right now. So that's my that's a good point that you've made, and I do appreciate that. If we did that, it would be. I still think that I would like to get the city council's comments before we finalize this, as well as residents' comments. So the question in my mind is, how do I get the residents to give me their comments before we send it out? That's really the key to what we're talking about, I think.
I hate to be pedantic, but I think word of mouth, if we can generate it, it's just like Save Rolling Wood, that sort of thing. That spread like wildfire. when people heard what was going on. And I think because of, I'm sorry, there's some animosity about the slanting of the survey and about other things like that. And I say with all due respect, I think the city council said they didn't even look at the survey before it went out. So maybe it wouldn't have been quite as slanted as it was, but whatever it is. And then at that point, if we haven't done it, then okay, it's our fault. We had our chance. What we don't feel like is we had our chance before. We feel like we've been scrambling to catch up and the train's already left the station.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, don't mean to be difficult.
No,
I
no,
really don't.
That's what we like to hear comments, and that's what we want to hear.
Can I chime in for a second?
Sure, Ryan.
Well, I mean, I just want to give our committee a little credit, and maybe this wasn't communicated well, but the initial survey came from about the initial part of the survey came from a group of 10 or so citizens who are not on the strike force, who felt like they wanted their voices heard, and so that this came out of the community, and then we have been asking at all of our meetings for people to chime in and suggest questions and ask and input in all of these meetings, and we posted it. It was not a popular viewpoint necessarily to push as hard as we did to get it posted on Friday. It was a lot of work, and I specifically want to thank Brooke, who in a very hard week for everybody and her did a tremendous amount of work in collating and going through and synthesizing all of the feedback that we've gotten, which is a lot. And the reason that we posted it is so that people could chime in at this commission. So it's not like no one's had an opportunity to chime in. That's in fact what this is. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with delaying and posting it to another strike force meeting, but I would like to hear, Ms. Wallace, if you have any substantive objections or concerns with it, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's what I very much want to hear if there's something in it that you don't like, or that you think is biased or leading, or is it that you don't want this survey going out, or is it you just want the whole comprehensive planning process to be a little slower, which I totally would understand.
It's a little bit of the latter and quite a bit of the former. I feel like there's some real information that's going into this survey that's going to be uncovered, and I somehow or other wish I had a magic wand to wave that everyone would get involved and everyone would give their opinion, whatever it happens to be. I did not in any way mean to take away from the hard work that the strike force has put in. I really did not. And if it came across that way, I apologize tremendously, because I have great respect for all the work that y'all have done.
No, not at all. I wasn't offended at all. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we had in fact, reached out to that it came from the community, and it came from persons who were very upset about the first survey. And my commitment to being on strike force was a commitment to try to include and get as much feedback from the community as possible. In fact, that's the very purpose of the survey, and including questions that might be unpopular, like, do you want to leave the city hall as is? Because I know, as Amber explained, that it's very hard to do all of the work that the city wants to do as it is, but I believe that there is a significant portion of the community who says, slow everything down over there. We don't need to hire more people. We don't need to build more offices. And so the very purpose of the survey, in my view, is to be as inclusive as possible, to give as much opportunity for people to speak their minds and to include as much as they can. So again, I would ask, is there anything on there that you didn't like? Because that's what my concern is, just trying to have a survey that is as objective and non-leading and open-ended as possible.
Well, the bad news is I didn't get a copy of the survey until about 20 minutes before I came online, so I can't give you a thorough, comprehensive response to that. But I can tell you one of the general concerns also is that we make sure that we can take care of what we got before we start adding on. That we can take care of pipes and sewers and water lines and flooding and road maintenance and so on, and just basic maintenance and stuff before that we can take care of that before we start addressing something even bigger and better. But that's all very generic. It's, you know, in the vision part of things. It's nothing that can be tabulated specifically.
Well, you know, it's not up to me, it's up to the committee. If there's a feeling that we need to, you know, put it on the next strike force and meeting and ask for more community input on the questions about getting community input, I'm never going to object to more community input. But you know, we have had the opportunity to get input. I'm sorry that we posted it on Friday, I believe. Did it not get posted? Does anybody know?
Oh, it got posted.
Okay, so it was posted, although I know it's hard to keep up with the strike force meetings.
It is.
I mean, it's good for us to keep up.
I had the green flyer that said what time y'all are meeting.
Yeah.
My feeling is, Diane, I'd like to get the city council's input before we have a final draft that we're ready to go with on that. And so just having the city councils make sure they look at it. And that, again, that's also a public meeting that people can voice their opinions on this. And that's an additional way we get this out to the public before it's finalized on that. I know we're going to have some comments from the city council. And I'd rather have their comments, and then that gives us an opportunity to get a final document ready to give to everybody on that. So I'm not trying to rush this. You know, we had a goal that the city council gave us to finish at a certain time, but I think we've all said this. You know, we're going to go through this. When we finish, we finish, and you know, I don't want to rush any part of this, but I also don't want this to drag. I want us to go ahead and do it. And the amount of work that that's put into this so far has just been tremendous. So my feeling is I'd rather have, and it may go to 2 city council meetings before it's finalized, because they may want to come back and see a draft after that. My expectation is they will have some comments. It'll come back to the strike force. The strike force will then either incorporate those or say, we don't really think this is something we should put in there, or different wording or whatever it is. And then they can kind of go from there, and then we'll have a final copy. But I do agree that, and it has had quite a bit of community input. And this is not just us sitting there. We've had some other comments that we've included in there as we went through. So I would, my feeling is that I would like for at least this to go to the city council and then come back to us with their comments, and then we can have that out. And then we can, my guess is it's not going to be a week for this finishes. I would wager that when we submit this to city council, it doesn't come back as approved as is. I'll just say that. And so it'll come back to us again anyway. And I will put out try to put a notice in the water bill that we are doing this survey, and this is how you get to look at it, and you can either make your comments at our strike force meetings or online, and to Ashley at the city hall, and that she'll make sure that all of the strike force gets all those comments on that. And we'll make sure that's in the water bill. Water bill is it's probably one of the more effective ways we have to reach our citizens on that, to get that done. So at least I think it is. For me, it would be. I get a lot of emails I don't answer. I'll just tell you that. So does that answer your question or address some of
It
this?
does indeed. Thank you very much, Tom, and everybody, and appreciate your hard work, truly.
Anytime, please. And feel free to pass the word. I agree. Word of mouth is a great way to handle things in a community like ours. So we do appreciate it. Okay.
Wallace is trying to raise.
Wally?
Yeah, I want to revisit one thing about the survey you're talking about. It seems to me that we have, I'm trying not to mix two things that to me are separate. You're talking about impervious cover, you're talking about height limits and all of that. I think it has to do with residential in one respect, and it has to do with commercial considering residential in another respect. Our topography on the further west end of the north side of Bee Caves has a whole different topography than when you get down to Edgegrove and go on down the highway. So I would think that it's really almost a different animal. And I'm just wondering if you're going to just generally put it in as what do you think about, or are you really want to know what do the people who live in a home think about the homes that could be built next door versus how do we effectively design a profitable for the city and profitable for the developer, a commercial district?
Well, that's why I wanted to have the Bee Cave Road subcommittee do its own survey of the commercial side, because I think there are totally separate animals on that.
Mhm.
And they're going to be doing it with the tenants and owners of those properties on that, because we want to give our tenants a voice on what they want to be have there too.
Well, I think we need to start getting meetings, unless I've not been involved because I didn't watch my email or something, and I was not aware of a meeting that was called.
I'll try to get Davis to make sure that occurs on that. He's our subcommittee chair on Bee Cave Road.
I saw him at the last meeting. He was online.
Right.
Well, and Wally, I'm on that committee too, and I don't think you've missed anything. I think we were kind of on pause until after the first of the year to start working on it.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, just as long as I'm involved, I'd like to make sure I'm involved and know when it is. And I do read both texts and emails, even though I'll be 85 in about a week.
It's something to look forward to for all of us, Wally. Follow your example.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Well, we've heard from a lot of people. Again, I would like to get the feedback from City Council on what we have, and then come back, and I'll make sure that it does get in the water bill. When I say that's the Imperial I. That's Ashley and Amber can help get us in the water bill. So at least we will explore that option. We also can do it electronically to the people we have. Is that a fair use of the electronic notification system?
Yes, we can do.
I think we do that too, and just get as many comments as we can before we follow up on that.
Tom, just to clarify, are you saying that we're going to send out a communication to ask people to communicate to us about what they want to be asked about? It seems to me that there are only so many times you can go to the well.
I agree.
Asking for citizen input and asking people to get engaged about what it is that we're going to ask them seems to me not like a very good use of one of those times you can go to the well.
Well, and that's a good point. But should I do, I had thought that what we'd want is when the city council meets, and this is what I was going to notify, that this survey will be submitted to city council for their input. And I would notify people. So if they had a question about something we didn't ask or something we shouldn't ask, that they would have an opportunity to express that. Is that too much, do you think, to ask?
I personally would not put it in the water bill that we want people to tell us what they want to be asked. But that, again, I mean, there's only so much you can.
I agree.
You can ask people to.
Yeah, I will. My opinion, and I think I might be in the minority here, is that this strike force is the community representation. Like, this is the first time I've ever gotten involved. I only ever went to city council meetings when I had a personal stake, like, a variance or something. And The only people I ever saw at them were other people with personal stakes. So, so I'm happy to include as many as we can, but I think this is including the community. That's my opinion.
I agree with Mo and Ryan on that too. I think that's why we put together.
Okay.
I also agree with that. We should just get this thing going.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and send this to, I won't do it in the water bill, but I would like word of mouth. So if anybody has a comment to go through, they can address that. But I will go ahead and take a motion to go ahead and submit this as is to the city council for their input and their comments.
So I will move that it be sent in draft form and that we're essentially asking for council to give us comments on it, but we're not asking them to finalize, send it out in current form, if that makes everybody more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I do note that there are at least a few more people on the call, both on the strike force and not on the strike force, that may want to weigh in. I just want to make sure we give them the opportunity before we vote on it and move on.
Be glad to do so. Let me get a second first, and then we'll have the time.
Second.
We have a second. Would anybody on the call like to make a comment? And Ashley, you're going to have to tell on a couple of them because they're on the phone and I can't tell.
Are they on? Turn them on.
Yeah, it looks like everyone who's visiting is not on a phone. If you're on a phone, it's *9 to raise your hand, and otherwise it's at the bottom of your screen, a hand icon to raise your hand.
Okay. I'm not seeing any on my screen.
I don't see any hands raised at this time, no, sir.
Right. Okay. So let's vote on this and we'll hold the vote. And is there, I'll do it the same way. Is there any negative votes not to do this? Please raise your hand. And I don't see any. And Ashley, do you see any? You don't see any either. So we will send that as a draft. Ryan, I'm glad you can word things better than I can on that. Is all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, Tom. This has been a tough one to get done, and I want to specifically thank you for helping shepherd it, and really do thank the committee and Jeff, who has just completely volunteered his time on this. So thanks to the committee.
Yeah, I will tell you, Ryan did a fantastic job. Brooke and David, just the amount of work that they put in, and Jeff, it's been great to work with y'all, and I know how much went into this. Item number 17 is discussion and public comment and possible action or report on future opportunities for tax growth and expansion in the city of Rollingwood. This is a new little thought that I had, and I wanted to kind of just discuss it with our task force. Occasionally there comes up opportunities for the city to do different things, i.e., for instance, and this is not a good example, but I'll give it to you. Hill Country Middle School lies within Travis County. It's not within the city of Austin. When Austin annexed that area, they specifically left Hill Country Middle School out. That obviously didn't provide any tax revenue for them. Rollingwood does a lot of policing and has for many years at Hill Country Middle School. If they have a policing problem, Rollingwood police answer the call on that. If, for example, the city of Rollingwood could, right now the law doesn't allow us to do so, if we annexed Hill Country Middle School, then Rollingwood would be eligible for a number of federal grants for our roadways. I believe I'm right. Am I not, Amber, on that?
I know, like for a Safe Routes to School grant.
Yes.
Yes.
And so this is kind of a catch-all deal that we could have as part of this report that would be, and it'd be strictly an addendum part of this report that would maybe target some other opportunities that we might have as it comes up about when the city, what procedures we would follow as a city to analyze that coming in, the cost to provide service, the income that we might get that comes in on that. And all this would be based on legislature trying to change some of the rules that come in on that. For years, there's been discussion with Rollingwood, Westlake, City of Austin about some of the little outlier streets, about kind of who can provide the best service to those streets on that. And it would, of course, require the property owners to want to, say, de-annex and then re-annex into a different city on that. So this is kind of a broad catch-all, but I thought as an addendum to our report, we may want to have some kind of future look at what Rollingwood could do, provided the law allows us to do it.
Mhm.
And I hadn't, the only one I can give you right now is Hill Country Middle School, because I know the implications on that, but I'm not sure about any of the other rest of it, it would ever happen. So
I'll speak up. I think that's a good idea. It's it may not be something that comes to fruition now, but it's something that can be on the back burner. And if an opportunity arises and it fits the needs of Rollingwood, then there's a framework for addressing it.
Well, I'm going to try to take a stab at some of the just general criteria, and it's not a rush deal. I'll be bringing it back because it's not going to be in our main report. It would just be an addendum to our report on that, as how the city might want to look at future opportunities and evaluating them. And I've given some thought to it over the last 30 years.
I wasn't
So,
moving more.
I have
You
a
have
couple
been moving
thoughts
more
about
than
it.
I've moved an hour and a half.
So if I don't have any objection, I'm going to start working on it. We'll look at it when we finish and decide whether it goes into as an addendum or not. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Item number 18 is discussion, public comment, and possible action to schedule the next town hall meeting. I would have preferred to schedule this in either the last week of January or the first week of February for our next town hall. And Ashley, you had some dates that I could pick on that, I believe.
I do, depending on, I guess, so you want to go after the January city council meeting and
Yes,
before, it looks like the next strike force meeting is on Monday, January 25th. So do you want to try to aim between city council and that next strike force meeting?
So January 25th doesn't give me a lot of time to get the word out. I probably would prefer sometime in February. I'm concerned that I want to make sure that I have at least 2 weeks. And that's really close now to being able to do it on the 25th.
Sure. We have Monday, February 1st would be available. And then it looks like Thursday, February 4th would also be available.
Well, the Monday date last time we ended up with about 50 participants, so I'm okay with Monday. If the first sounds okay with everybody, we will hopefully we'll have a little bit of additional work done by then, and we can that we can kind of provide to our residents on that for the town hall meeting. Would that date work for everybody? And that gives us opportunity, Ashley, to actually put that in the water bill. And so we can give notice with that too. I believe, can't we?
Amber, are we able to get that in the January bill still? I don't know what our timeline is on.
Yeah, we read meters on the 22nd. I think we've just got to get them to them before they go out to read meters. I'm I don't know if it'll give time to get in the be mailed out and for people to have time to open their mail and prepare for the. It would be cutting it close.
Okay, would it be better if I postponed it a week? Would that help? It's not going to help on the water bill, I wouldn't think.
Right, yeah, it wouldn't help us get notice out any quicker. We do have, it looks like Monday the 8th there is a strike force meeting already scheduled for that date. We have Wednesday the 10th would be open.
If I did it on the 1st, let me go back to the 1st, but if we could get it in there, great. The last time we sent out a postcard, which we could do that again, which I think was effective.
Yeah, and you know what? We don't have to wait for the water bill. Staff could do that. We could just go ahead and do the mailer ourselves, if that helps.
Okay, I would rather go ahead and schedule it on the 1st rather than delay it any longer. Ryan, is that gonna, you're very good at these steps. Is that that's not gonna interfere with our, any of our survey that backup that we have on that? Because we're gonna have a meeting before that. We have a meeting on the 25th that we'll get the comments back from City Council.
I gotta run to another meeting, but you know, as long as it takes to get it done right is all that matters to me. So let's
Agree.
get what we need to get on input, and get it. It'll get out when it gets out.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. If you need to run, I appreciate it. Would y'all rather do it on the 1st or rather wait until, did you say the 7th?
You're on mute, Ash. I think she said the 4th.
Sorry, we have Thursday the 4th, but if you're looking at waiting until the following week, we could do Wednesday the 10th.
You know, given what we've got to get back from everybody, I think that may be better just to do it on February the 10th.
Okay.
I'm going to be out that day
Okay.
based on the current calendar. But
Just a minute, just a minute.
Wally? Oh, sorry. Oh. Everybody else okay with that date? Great. Let's go ahead and schedule it again. And last time we did it at 6 o'clock, which I thought was a very good time for everybody. So I'd like to do it at 6 o'clock again, and we'll just plan to do it on Wednesday the 10th. And I think Ryan had indicated he's going to be tied up for the next couple of weeks, so that'll give him an opportunity to catch up and get back in traces.
Date again?
February the 10th, which is a Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Next item we have is any other public comments we have from anyone? I don't see any hands. Ashley, do you? Okay.
No hands raised.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Phil.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor or all those opposed, raise your hand. Oh, Phil, you don't want to oppose.
No.
Gotcha. Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks to everybody. Thank you, Diana, for your comments on that.
everyone.